how as men do you think we can be better? And when I say better, really what I'm speaking to here is know how to approach a woman in a way that is not going to make them feel uncomfortable, intimidated, fearful. And that's the what women speak to all the time. They talk about how they have to walk home with their car keys in their hand because if they pretend they're on phone calls when they're walking down the street. These are all things that my sister, my female friends have spoken to. So how as men can we be better?
The first thing I think is to actually spend some time sandboxing this, like practicing. Like the only way that you're going to learn how to interact with a woman is by doing it. It's not the sort of thing that you're going to be able to work out on the internet. I mean, like basic stuff, like don't stand super close to her. Don't do it in a dark alleyway at night. Don't stare for ages without saying anything, right? These are very basic, like rudimentary objective metrics that we can give. But really what it comes down to is just have a bit of charm about you. Understand that if you go up and say something to a girl, hi, I just wanted to ask how your day's going. I just wanted to tell you that you looked really nice today. If there is a girl that has a problem with that, presuming that it's not in a cul-de-sac alleyway at the dead of night and you've got your hood up, right?
Or you're her employer.
Or you're her employer. Well, here's another interesting one, right? Bill and Melinda Gates, right? Melinda Gates works for Microsoft. Bill is the founder and CEO. Bill sees Melinda around the office. This is in the 1980s. And he thinks, wow, yeah, she's a bit of all right. So he decides to ring her and say, Melinda, it's Bill. Wondered if you wanted to go out with me one evening. And she said, when are you thinking? He says, how's 3 weeks tomorrow? She said, Bill, I don't think that you're spontaneous enough for me. I don't think that this is going to work. Put the phone down. 30 minutes later, he rings back and says, how's this for spontaneous? You've got the rest of the day off. Let's go on a date. 2023, founder CEO of large tech company rings receptionist asking her to date him. And after she says no, rings back again, pulls her out of work and takes her on a date. Game over, right? Done. Where is the line in between Bill Gates and Harvey Weinstein? Well, it's precisely in the details, right? Everybody can say what Harvey Weinstein did was wrong. Some people would say that what Bill Gates did was wrong. But okay, is it wrong for two people, a guy and a girl, who spend every day, every single time that they go to the water cooler, one of them sees the other one gets up and like escapes from their chair so that they get the opportunity to go to the water cooler together, and they've been doing it for 6 months and it's this super platonic thing, but the guy's terrified and the girl's terrified. You go, okay, like should we nerf every relationship so that interaction can never move to the next level, given the fact that we've got high rates of loneliness, given the fact that we've got massive amounts of sexlessness? 20% of relationships begin on online dating, 20% of relationships begin in online media, social media, right? That's 2 out of 5 relationships begin online, and they're the most fragile. They're the ones that drop the quickest. They're the ones that stay together the least long. Workplace, better. Friends, even better. Church, even better than that, right? But we are in uncharted waters here, people. With regards to the mating world, we are in uncharted waters.
The Harvey Weinstein example is where I was like, oh, that guy was a fucking monster.
Well, of course.
Yeah, but the Bill Gates one I get. It's kind of like the old-fashioned way of doing things. You know, when our worlds used to be a village, and we would, maybe write a letter, or we'd take the girl out from the church or whatever. But the Harvey Weinstein, this guy was a fucking monster. Like I remember listening to some of the tapes and the victims, and this guy was a fucking predator. He was I
haven't listened to any of those.
Really?
Are they harrowing?
It's one of the most disgusting things I've ever heard, where even like a journalist would come and interview him and he would just be like, sexually assaulting and physically assaulting her during the interview.
So this guy just had no boundaries.
He is just a disgusting monster.
But do you see what I mean? That like quite rightly, there needed to be a reckoning around that. There had to be a reckoning around that kind of a man using that kind of a position to get that kind of access.
Yeah.
That needed sanitizing. That sort of behavior needed sanitizing, and there was going to be fallout from it. Downstream from that, how sanitized should behavior be up to the point at which it's been sterilized? And there is 84% of women say that they want the man to make the first move, right? It is still on. I mean, for the girls that are listening, How many times have you been the one that's approached a guy? Like, I've been in nightclubs for 15 years, right? Met about 1 million people in there. Twice it's ever happened to me that girls have come up and been like forthright about chatting me up. Twice. And I've worked 1,000 nights in my...
That's actually pretty good going, actually.
yeah, two out of 1,000. That's not too bad. I mean, that could also be my fault, right? Like, but this is very difficult, man. And again, for the guys and girls that would say, well, what does it matter? You know, what does it matter that that people are going to be single? Especially for women. If you're a high achieving woman who's got the PhD, and I have a friend, PhD, millionaire, self-made millionaire in the fitness world, mid-30s, now going sperm donor route. She's really struggling to find a partner. So she is going to use her very vast resources to be able to support these kids, to bring them into the world, to have a fantastic life. But make no mistake, that's a single parent household, right? That's a single parent household. The outcomes that you have from single parent households seem to be sociosexually, the daughters don't do particularly well. You have higher rates of sociosexuality, which is more casual sex, more complexes around sex from single parent households. But what we hear about a lot is that education and employment outcomes of single parent households on average tend to be worse. For women, for the girls in that situation, it doesn't really seem to impact them all that much. So however big you think that effect is, double it and put it just on boys. It's only boys that seem to have that kind of a problem. And quite rightly, you're not going to have a patriarch in the family that's maybe able to deal with a rambunctious, disagreeable boy. I don't think, for the women that want to have kids and you have the resources, absolutely. But for anyone to say that that's the optimal approach, that this is what would be amazing. And again, I'm not saying women become domestic prostitutes, take yourself out of the boardroom and get yourself back in the kitchen. Like, that's not what either of us are saying that we want women to do here. But most people, 8 out of 10 women that are childless once they reach their 40s and later, didn't intend to not be. This is a very difficult conversation that we need to have to warn people about the impact of not thinking ahead in their relationships. You have less time than you think. You need to be aware of that.
If I, on the other side of the coin, when we're talking about men again, if I delete the dating apps then, so, you know, first thing we're doing, we're deleting all dating apps. That still leaves us in a world where there's this kind of pseudo-sexual, fake digital relationship in porn.
Oh, yeah.
Pornography still exists. So I'm wondering about that 50% of men. I'm assuming, and I don't know this 50% of men, but I'm assuming pornography is probably quite a big part of their replacement therapy for the connection and sexual intimacy that they're missing.
Correct. So I have a theory called the male sedation hypothesis, right? There is a phenomenon called young male syndrome. If you have a large number of non-partnered, childless men in a society, that tends to be an unstable civilization. There's examples throughout history where men who don't have a reason to behave, who don't buy into the social contract of cohesing everything together, tend to cause problems. They revolt, they cause riots, they spray paint cars, and they push over granny, and they do domestic violence and sexual assault. There have been a number of incel killings of disaffected, disenfranchised young men that have gone out and done horrible things. But it is not increasing in line with the amount of sexlessness, right? It's tripled. 2008 to 2018, tripled 8% to 28%. The number of associated young male syndrome incidents hasn't increased in kind. So you think, okay, something going on here. Something is happening which is causing men to not enact this very well established throughout all of history response. When men get into a relationship, their testosterone drops. When they have kids, their testosterone drops again, and reduced testosterone reduces risk-taking behavior. If you've just had a kid, or you're in a relationship, don't try and jump off that cliff, because then maybe you've got a kid that doesn't have a father anymore. You can see why that would be adaptive. So the question is, why is it that we have greater rates of sexlessness amongst young men than ever, but we don't have this in-kind amount of violence and disruption? And it's my belief that porn, video games, and social media are sedating men out of this status-seeking and reproductive-seeking behavior. So I think that you get a titrated dose, just an ever so slight, just a little bit of reproductive cues from porn that helps to sedate men's desire to go out and pursue women. I think that what video games do is they create a sense of camaraderie, of goal-seeking behavior, status within the online world. It satisfies a lot of what men would have been trying to achieve with that young male syndrome revolution in the past. So my belief is that we have this male sedation occurring. Now, given the choice between a society of men who are dangerous and a society of men who are sedated, right now, the group of sedated men are ever so marginally better. But the only reason for that is that we're at a time of peace, right? If there was an alien civilization that came down to Earth today, the best thing that we could do would be to switch off all porn, turn off all social media. You want men to be angry. You want men to be riled up when there is something that they can direct that anger at. Right now, there isn't. And if they did, it would just foment and it would cause problems and it would be bad, right? So yes, the sedating of this kind of reproductive seeking behavior in a way has made the world calmer, but it's not particularly, you wouldn't say it's optimal, right? This isn't great.